Back in the 90s, I took creatine for bigger lifts and bigger arms. Now that I'm 50, I'm wondering if the muscle part was just the beginning.
Creatine is not just some gym bro powder, and that matters more after 50 than we realized. Because the real risk after 50 isn't just losing muscle. It's slowly losing energy, recovery, and eventually capability. And while muscle made it famous, your brain uses energy too.
So in this video, we're going to break down what creatine actually does, why the conversation changes once you turn 50, what the brain changes really mean, and how to decide if creatine belongs in your longevity routine without trying to turn it into magic powder.
Because the part gym bros skipped may not be in the mirror. It may be what creatine is doing for energy in your body and maybe your brain.
Because after 50, this stops being a muscle conversation. It becomes a conversation about energy, recovery, staying sharp, and whether your body keeps doing what you ask of it 20 years from now. And honestly, that matters more than what I expected. I remember back in the 90s when I first started buying creatine, it was from some random guy that I knew from my college.
Sounds almost like a drug deal of sorts.
You know, it was a little under the table. I'm not sure where he was getting it from. It definitely wasn't GNC. I obviously bought it because I thought it would help me lift more and get bigger and stronger. That was the entire conversation.
I've only recently incorporated creatine into my routine due to my family history of cognitive decline. And it's that brain part that surprised me the most.
That 90s gym bro vibe isn't completely wrong, but it's also not complete.
Creatine helps your body recycle quick energy that your cells already use. Muscle made creatine famous because muscle uses a lot of quick energy, but your brain also needs energy.
So now that we're in our 50s,
or 40s.
Now that we are in our 50s or approaching our 50s, the narrative changes to talking about how we can support our energy systems, both in our body and brain.
This is where we really just need to slow down. We don't want to turn creatine into some sort of miracle powder, but we also don't want to dismiss it as just a bodybuilding supplement.
So the first thing to understand is this: creatine is not just a muscle powder, it's an energy tool. Yeah, muscle made it famous, but after 50, that conversation is bigger than just muscle. And once you see it that way, the next question gets more interesting. What does that actually mean for aging? In my 20s, all I was thinking about was how much weight I could get on that bar.
But you're 50 now, right? So the goal is a little bit different.
Yeah, for me now, it's about whether I can keep training without completely falling apart.
This is where age really changes the question, right? We're not talking about vanity and having the big muscles. We're just concerned about function. Can you still keep doing the things that you want to do as you grow older?
When you're younger, you just kind of assume that one day you wake up and you're old. You don't really begin to realize that functions are slowly disappearing every single day.
And that's the part most people don't really consider or think of about aging.
Yeah, you recover slower. You might skip a few workouts. You're losing your power. Things start to feel different. You're not running and jumping and doing all the things that you were doing when you're younger.
And you're not just losing functions at this point, you're losing options.
So the bigger question becomes, are we treating creatine like a muscle supplement, when the post 50 issue is actually functional decline?
I think anything that helps with strength or recovery is certainly worth a look.
After 50, muscle is not just about how you look, it's about how much of life you can still say yes to. When I was younger, it was very simple. Take creatine, get stronger, get bigger muscles, problem solved. That's the gym bro version. And it's tempting because everybody wants that shortcut. A scoop is easier than a workout plan, and a tub is way easier than consistency.
And that is how creatine gets overhyped.
Yeah, that's the part that younger me probably missed the point. I wanted that scoop to do the work for me.
But really, the basics still matter here. You can't just rely on supplements as the entire system.
As we've grown older and gotten just a hair bit wiser, what we realized is creatine does not actually replace the behaviors that protect muscle and function. It's not going to replace your resistance training. It's not going to replace getting enough protein. It's not going to replace your sleep or your hydration or your recovery. And it definitely does not replace consistency.
Those are the habits that create longevity. Without those habits, what is the point of creatine? Before you take any supplement, you should ask, what habit does it support? If there's no habit, there may be nothing for the supplement to amplify.
So it turns out creatine is not the investment, it's the matching contribution. You still have to make the deposits. And this is where the conversation gets even more interesting, because the thing creatine supports may not stop at muscle. But the fact is, most people connect creatine to muscles because that's where the conversation started.
That makes sense.
Muscles use a lot of quick energy, and creatine became famous because lifters could feel the difference in the gym. But it's not just muscle. Your brain needs a huge amount of energy to work. That's the part that grabbed my attention.
So creatine is so much more than that. Creates clarity and focus and mental energy. This is also where supplement marketing can get ahead of the science. It's easy to hear brain benefits and turn creatine into a miracle powder, but we shouldn't do that. The brain angle is promising and worth watching, but it is not as settled as the muscle and training side.
So what we realize now is that it's not just about building muscle, it's about protecting the energy systems that help us stay strong, sharp, and capable. So now, the practical question is not, is creatine good or bad? The practical question is, how would someone at or near 50 decide if it belongs in their routine? Now that we understand how creatine supports more than muscle, the question naturally flows towards, should I take it? How much should I take? Dosages and all timings, loadings, all those details. But after 50, we really just need to slow that down because it's not all about scoop size.
The first question really is creatine going to be useful? Is it supporting a habit or a goal that you already have? And more importantly, do you already have the basics in place? Are you already sleeping well? Is your nutrition there? Are you already exercising?
Once you do have the basics in place, the question becomes, are we adding creatine to support a real longevity routine, or are we using it to feel like we're doing something? And it matters because supplements can become sort of a shortcut. You buy the tub, you buy the scoop, you feel like you've made some progress.
Once you have those basics in place, then your next question should be, what habit is this going to support? Is it going to support my recovery? Is it going to support my strength training? Is it going to support my cognitive health? Or is it just going to be consistency?
So the danger becomes using this scoop to feel like progress. While you're skipping your training, while you're not eating your protein, not getting your sleep, you're not focused on hydration or recovery.
And this is also why we can't just go by vibes. If you're going to experiment with something like creatine or really any longevity tool, you need to know what numbers are worth watching.
We did a whole video on 5 numbers that your doctor may not be paying attention to. So the fact is, creatine should have a job. If it's not supporting the routine, it's just another tub on the counter. And that brings us back to the bigger point. After 50 or near 50, calm down, creatine is not really about becoming someone else completely. It's about keeping more of the strength, the energy, and the clarity that helps you stay you. So back in the day when I was buying street creatine from my buddy at the college, I thought it was obviously just about becoming bigger.
Now we're looking at it as a possible tool for staying capable, and that is a completely different reason to care.
So the danger is in thinking too small. If we're only asking, will creatine help me build muscles? We miss the deeper question. Because after 50, the real fear is not losing muscle, it's losing what muscle, energy, and clarity allows you to do. You lose a little strength, you lose a little confidence, then you stop doing certain things, and then your world becomes smaller.
And that's the longevity lens. It is not just about living longer.
The real conversation that I care about is whether 20 years from now, I can still get that luggage into the overhead bin without needing any help. That's why today we're not chasing bigger muscles, we are protecting a bigger life. That's why I'd watch this video next. Because if we're going to build a longevity system, we can't just guess with a scoop in our hand.